Welcome to another episode of Automation Ladies podcast. Our guest today is Brielle. Is it Reisman or Reisman?
Reisman.
Reisman.
Yes.
And then I saw your name was something else in like the email. Is that your maiden name?
Yeah. I just got married about a year ago, so it's been a really slow transition.
No worries. I know it takes a lot of energy and effort to like change your name. I'm gonna ask you, what we ask all of our guests, which is for you to kind of go into the story of how you got into industrial automation.
Yeah, I've noticed your guests kind of have like two ways that they go. It's like they always knew they'd be in automation, like they had engineering parents or like grew up in it, or they just kind of found themselves there by like sheer luck. And I was kind of the latter. So I was a chemical engineering student in school. And then my first job out of school, I was, looking for jobs that I felt like were a really good um, culture fit, I'd say, and like a good place to start off my career. But I wouldn't say I really had an idea of like what industry I wanted to work in or what kind of plant I wanted to work in. And actually, you know, being in my senior year of college, really like realizing like now it's actually time to go work in a plant where there's lots of heavy machinery and dangerous chemicals and reactors and all that kind of stuff. I was like, not sure I picked the right career. Like that stuff is really scary to me. Even in unit ops, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. So luckily I found myself at a really good company called Applied Control Engineering. Right out of school. It was a great fit. It's a medium-sized company. And of course, obviously we do controls. So there is a point at which you are around all that kind of stuff, but it's just a different capacity, right? You're not around it all the time getting 24-hour calls and stuff like that. So I kind of just found myself here. And once I started in the business, I did controls for quite a few years before moving into the more like commercial side of things. And I've loved it ever since. So I definitely think it's an industry I'll be staying in for the long haul, and it seems to be a perfect fit for me.
What made you study chemical engineering?
So a few things. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is eastern Pennsylvania. It's very close to Philadelphia, and that's actually where Air Products is headquartered. So growing up, like I grew up in a very blue collar family, and my dad was always like, you could go work at Air Products, that'd be a dream career. Like he always thought this was, like a great company to work for and all that. So when I was in high school, I actually found that Air Products had a small, like 4-person high school internship. And I applied for it, I interviewed for it, and I actually got it. So when I was 17, after my junior year of high school, I worked at Air Products in the summer and I got to meet tons of people. I did some work in the lab. I did a bunch of work with like marketing materials and developing kind of like technical sales presentations for internal use. And I just got to really meet people, talk to them, figure out what kind of careers people were into. And I realized like all of kind of the managers and the people running stuff were chemical engineers instead of chemists. And I thought, well, I think I want to do that. And then I really didn't have a preference in what kind of engineering I wanted to do, but I Googled like highest paid college major, right? Like get my more bang for my buck. And it was like chemical engineering is a really high paying field. And I was like, sold. That's what I'll do then. So it was very practical. It wasn't very passion driven. Like I like chemistry, I like math, but the pieces just kind of fell into place. I'm a very decisive person, so once I decided, I'm like, we're going for it.
What was your like did you take chemistry in high school?
I did, yeah.
Did you take was there like advanced placement or there's what's the other one called? Like uh B something. I don't there's like college level like chemistry classes you can take.
Yeah, I took AP Chem in high school. It was actually the first year my high school
Okay.
offered it, so it didn't get me anything. Like in college, usually if you get a certain grade on the AP exam, like you can skip doing chemistry in college. That was not my case. But I found it really cool. I really enjoyed doing it. But yeah, and I guess I will say I have loved chemistry even when I was little. Like for Christmas, I'd get those little like chemistry sets that your parents can get you with like the little slides and all that kind of stuff. Where you can like take pond water and like put it between the slides and look at it. So I always thought it was cool. So yeah, I guess I always did kind of have an interest in it.
So I remember taking organic chemistry in college, and it just like destroyed my love of chemistry.
Yes.
So I don't know if you had like a similar, and I also took analytical chemistry, and that kicked my butt. So both of those, just I think I was angry because they're like memorize these mechanisms like SN2 backside attack, like all that stuff. And then they're like, but we don't know for sure if that's really how it works because it happens so fast. And I'm like, wait, you're going to test me and charge me to test me on a theory that you can't prove. So that kind of just like made me a little bit angry about it. I still wanted to be in that, but I wanted to know, like, you know, was there, were you able to continue to love chemistry even after organic chemistry?
I like to pretend that organic chem never really happened, right? I feel the same way. I feel like my love of chemistry really got robbed from me because, I'm going into it, I'm like, this is gonna be so cool. And then they're like, just you have to memorize, right? There's no, in math, you learn principles and theories and you learn these things, you can apply them. In organic chem, it's like, cram this entire piece of paper into your brain and make sure you know step by step how this goes and just recall it. And I am the same way. I had a little bit of like a personal, like, really kind of thing. So I didn't love organic chem, and I probably should have studied more than, I did. Maybe I would have liked it better. But I also feel like when you're taking those, like organic chem or organic chem 2 in your chemical engineering curriculum, they're kind of the easiest classes you have at the time. Does that make sense? Like you're also taking mass transfer, you're taking reactor design, you're taking heat transfer, and so like organic chemistry really seems like the light one at the time because you're like these classes if I don't pass like I will fail. I will fail. I need to repeat a year. So yeah, I actually did like PChem a lot because I think it's like way more physics based than chemistry, which I thought, and mathematical, which I thought was really cool.
Do you have any advice for like high school students that think that they might want to be chemical engineers?
Ooh. So I think where people go wrong in choosing or not choosing chemical engineering is once so there's like Chemi 31, that's what it was called at our class in our school, where you start with, I guess, what is it? Process flow diagrams, in and out, mass balance. Is it mass balance? The first class. And people start taking it and they go, I hate this. It's like, well, this is not exactly what it is. So I think once you decide you want to be a chemical engineer, you need to decide, right? Like if that's what you're doing, it's going to kind of suck. It's going to be really hard. It's very challenging, but once you stick with it, I think it definitely pays off for sure. And I've had friends that switch to like mechanical engineering or electrical engineering because they think it's going to be easier. It's not. Any engineering class is like just as difficult. Like you're not getting out of a difficult class because you switch to mechanical engineering. It's like it's a very difficult major still.
Maybe if you switch to civil, just kidding.
Yeah. Or industrial. We had a ton of
Just kidding.
industrial engineers.
That's who we troll.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my school we didn't have industrial, so we would troll civil.
Okay.
And obviously, like if you're getting an engineering degree, you have to be smart. So like even if it's just because they don't have as many dynamics kind of stuff is like supposed to be stationary or
Hmm.
static. And so that's kind of why we trolled them like that. But like they're still really good engineers and like um but what I was gonna ask you was uh for what was your favorite class in college or like favorite topic that you studied?
Okay, so hard pivot. I also did, so I did a chemical engineering degree, but my school also had a program called the Integrated Business and Engineering Program, which is really why I went to Lehigh. So
Neat.
this program is for engineers who want to do like essentially the job I'm doing now. So engineers who love engineering, they think it's cool, they want to know all the technical knowledge, but then they want to transfer it over and be a product manager or be an entrepreneur or go into technical sales or those kind of careers. So we take the whole business suite So we take accounting and management and marketing and BIS and finance. We take all that kind of stuff, but then we also have classes that are specific to the major where we do negotiations, we do public speaking, we do product design and development, we pitch to investors, and then we do a whole senior project where we're helping local entrepreneurs to design a product, select their market, kind of find themselves in a space. So those classes were really where I thrived. Like chemical engineering was cool, got the job done, but where I really was passionate is in creating marketing material, presentations, in presenting, in doing like kind of all the extra stuff, the public speaking. And I think it adequately prepared me for where I find myself in life now, which it's a really cool program. I definitely recommend people look into kind of that side of things. Even if I were to just stay a regular quote unquote engineer, I mean, those skills would have helped out immensely.
Oh yeah. I stayed away from all business related stuff and then ended up doing my own business, and I regret that. And like I absolutely think all engineers, if you really want to, make the big bucks in the end, like you don't just want to be engineer, you want to be customer facing. And so
Right.
you want to be able to like sell. And the marketing thing, like that is like I highly recommend people, as technical as they are, if they can handle it, because engineers are kind of, I don't know, a lot of us are on the spectrum, or we're like socially not, we tend to be awkward. Not to say all of us. Obviously, women do a pretty good job of like, I don't know, being more social. But like, yeah, like the traditional, like, engineering male, like doesn't really want to face the customer. But there's a lot of more potential in money. If learn anything about business. And, my grandpa told my dad studied engineering. He just never finished. But my grandpa told my dad that like, engineers do all the work and the business people make all the money. And so I wanted to just comment that was like a really smart move on your end to like also learn business at the same time. And
Yeah.
I think, I regret not having done any business in school at all, like no finance, like I'm crap with money. Like I, wish that I learned the hard way, all the things that I, having my own business. Um, so yeah, I recommend, trying to go the route that you took. And I think my school had that, but yeah, I definitely think that people should like do that. What do you what's the name of the company you work for? Applied
Control engineering.
what's it called?
Applied control engineering. So we just go by ACE.
Advanced control engineering? Oh,
Applied
okay.
control. Yeah.
Okay, ACE. So what's been kind of your experience with ACE, and like what's some of the projects that you've kind of enjoyed doing? And then describe like what your role is and like how it's not, exactly what people might think it is.
Yeah. So, like a lot of systems integrators, we are an independent systems integrator, which means we are quote unquote system agnostic. I actually saw a post the other day on LinkedIn that was like, your engineers are not agnostic. They absolutely have preferences. They have ones that they like, ones that they hate. Like they are not agnostic. And that is true, right? Like engineers independently have their own preferences, but we say we're a system agnostic integrator because we have 200 people. So between 200 people, we really make sure that our skill sets are varied in process, industry, varied in technology, and then at all levels, right? So we definitely want senior engineers who have been working on something for 20 years, but we also want new engineers to kind of be able to fill in behind that, right? As we've been kind of talking about, there's a big shortage of young engineers in our industry. So part of what we do is training those engineers, getting them on projects and making them useful as soon as possible so that they can, kind of build up their own career and add to our industry. So system agnostic, a lot of different partners, right? We do a lot of Rockwell, a lot of Siemens, Honeywell, ABB, kind of Wonderware, all the kind of like big names, and then certainly lots of legacy systems as well. I think what's really cool is that we really do things across many process like industries. So I've worked on a spice mill. I've worked on a controlled substances plant. I've worked on air separation. So, I mean, from one thing to the other, it's like whiplash, right? It's like, whoa, especially going from pharmaceutical to everything else. So, what I started out with is, being one of those engineers, a young engineer. I think I was on a project my very first day on a pharmaceutical project. And then over the years, I was like, listen, this is cool, but when the RFQ gets dropped on my desk, I want to know how this got here. Like, I want to know who talked to who, what happened behind the scenes, who decided that we were doing this, who decided we were the best people for the job. And so I kind of started asking a lot of questions, and they were like, maybe you should take an inside sales role. And I'm like, you know what? I think that sounds good. So then for a few years, I worked on proposals and really got to see like the full scope of everything we did, up from Boston out to California, working with people all over the company, figure out who's the right person to talk, Bailey and F90. And it's like, oh, go talk to whoever. It's like, okay, got to go talk to him and figure out a solution. And it was just a really, really cool job. And then at some point, I was like, I think I've outgrown this. I really just want to be responsible for customers and vendors in Texas. And so about formally a year ago, but definitely like a year and a half, 2 years ago-ish, I started taking over more of the sales responsibilities in this office. So I'm really responsible for all of our customer relationships out of Texas and our vendor relationships as well.
How did you get to Texas?
Yeah. So again, I'm from Eastern Pennsylvania. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I went to Lehigh University, which is 5 miles away. So by the time that I graduated college, I was like, I gotta try something else. Like, I need to get out of here, right? I want to live somewhere warm where there's no winter. I want to live in a big city where I can just Uber to a football game. And so I was kind of looking for jobs in Texas. I didn't specifically narrow in on Houston yet. And then I saw that Ace had an office in Houston. And during my interview, I saw like the map up on the wall. I was like, wait a sec. Can you move me there? And they were like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I want to move to Houston. So 5 years ago, they moved me to Houston, and I've never looked back. I live here now. I will live here for the foreseeable future. So I love living here.
That's awesome. Can you talk about some of the maybe challenges of like your role right now, like especially with like, vendors or maybe competition?
Yeah, so as you know, Houston is there's so much opportunity in Houston, but there's also so much competition, right? So there's integrators of all size, all capabilities. There's 1,000 one-man shows running around that will charge $40 an hour for PLC programming, or you can find a big company that will charge you $300 an hour for PLC programming. And so there's lots of different flavors and types out there. I also think there's so much opportunity that there's really a place for all of us. And I think it's just about finding your right place and the people that you like working with and the people that like working with you. So I'm not super intimidated by it. Obviously, it's when you see 8 other people on an RFQ, you're like, but I really do think that the chips kind of fall where they do. I think when you can provide really good insight and a great customer experience to someone working with you, and you can ask the right questions and drill down and make sure it's worth your time and worth their time, and that is genuine, right? That you're being honest about what you can provide and where your shortcomings are and all of that. I really do think that there's a place for everybody here. So we're certainly still growing in this area. We're smaller than a lot of the other companies in Houston, even though we are 200 people nationally. So big company, small in this area, but definitely growing for sure.
That's great. I see a lot of your content on LinkedIn and I really like it. Like, what is your strategy, or like, how do you go about the way that you post and create the content that you create?
First of all, thank you so much. I don't have a filter, I guess. Like, I kind of just say what comes into my brain. So about a few years ago, I noticed that there were things in ACE's marketing material that I, as a younger person, would have wanted to add to it, I should say. Like, for instance, I noticed how the blog was pretty maybe corporate or directed towards customers, but I felt like someone who's a potential employee of ACE would go to the blog and not really find what they were looking for. They wouldn't really find much about the company culture. And what we have as an engineering company is our people, right? We are only as good as the people we hire and maintain and train. So I felt like I could add a good story to that because I was with ACE right out of school. There's specific reasons I picked the company. And so I, pitched him like, why don't you let me write a blog about how my experience has been here. I also think it's really important to show women and new college grads that there's a company that is good at hiring women and also maintaining women. I think keeping women around and creating a culture that, you don't just hire them for the number, but you allow them to grow and nurture them and you make them feel comfortable. I think that is a really good message to put out there. So I wrote a blog about how my, new grad experience was. And then after that, I was just on a roll. I'm like, why don't you add this? I want to see that. Let's do that. And so that's just kind of continued to grow. And now whenever I have an idea, I'm like, hey, Dave, like, I got one coming your way, right? So, and he can choose. He's our sales manager. I think you met him, actually.
Is he Houston-based?
He is based out of our Maryland office. I think you may have met him at Automate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At our
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So I just sent stuff to him. I'm like, I want to see this posted or published. And I thought, about, I'd say like the beginning of the year is when I really started thinking, hey, is it bothering Dave every time I have a thought and him having to go, is this what the ACE message is? I could just start posting on my own because, sure, I work for ACE, but it's still my thoughts and my ideas and all of that, and certainly reflected in my experience. So I started just kind of writing whatever I thought, and instead of waiting 6 weeks for something to get approved and edited and all that, I just, boom, fire away. And then it's really interesting to see like what people think and getting comments, and it certainly made the industry, the industry feels like this big, wide open, like endless industry, but once you start posting and engaging, you see people, and certainly I've followed you, and just the world becomes a lot smaller, and you start to get to know people and see the ideas floating around, and then it means so much more to you to be a part of that virtually, right?
Yeah. Why do you think people, because I was like not trying to put my voice out there at first, and I actually got encouragement right around like 10,000 followers, because what I used to do, and this is literally like part of my autism, is I found a bunch of videos on YouTube that I was just like, wow, like obsessed with. And so I would post them on Facebook and no one would care. And so I started posting them. I know like Facebook is for old people, 'cause I'm a millennial. So I started posting them on LinkedIn, and like my following kind of blew up. But I wasn't doing anything other than just like maybe making a comment and then posting the video. And before the algorithm would show you like a lot better, like, what is it? Like the picture or the front picture was like way nicer. Now they've changed it. So like, I don't even post YouTube videos anymore because it actually decreases your viewing, which I don't like what they did with the algorithm, but that's kind of how I got to my first 10,000 followers, was just posting. I was just a curator, like a YouTube curator, posting stuff related to us on LinkedIn. And sometimes it was chemical engineering related, not just controls related, but I would do both. Or like tutorials on how to use different softwares. Just anything or like the inside of a solenoid, or the inside animation of like a turbine, like a steam or gas turbine, like just all kinds of how a flow meter works. Just different like types of information. And I was always doing it because it was just the way that my brain works and how I wanted to use my energy. And like I'm always on my phone, and I was doing that. I still had a full-time job, and then I had a colleague of mine say, like, what if you started making your own content? And at the same time, I saw people, like Vlad Romanov, he has like a big PLC wall behind him. And so I saw these guys and I was like, they all have like PLC walls behind them. And I was like, how hard is it for me to get a bunch of PLCs and put them behind me? So that's kind of where like I combined that, the fact that I knew that like there weren't any women doing that, and then, started using my own voice, which I really did not want to do. And then started writing, and then that blew it up even more. And then, for a long time, like, because Nikki, my co-host on Automation Ladies, is like, she studied international business, and we have a lot of things in common. And her dad actually is an engineer, an electrical engineer. And so like, she came to me and was like, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, yes, because then you can do all the talking, and then I'll interject about like the technical stuff sometimes. But yeah, it kind of got me out of my shell. And like, I just recently looked at like all of the trade shows I've been to and was just like, I can't believe, for as, antisocial as I am, like where I've taken my platform and personal branding. And, what do you think, why do you think people don't do that? Like, cause I know for me, it was, I don't know. A lot of engineers are like, by the way, I've asked women to come onto the podcast, not just women, but like people. And they're just like, no, like, I don't have anything to say. And that's crazy because everyone has something to say, everyone. And so I don't know if there's like, words of encouragement of like, why, a lot of us engineers think that like what we know is common knowledge, and that's not true. So something that we might think is common knowledge is actually like a treasure for someone, because they didn't know that. And all it's going to take is us just like putting that information out there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I started noticing this when I'm trying to write, put together proposals, and I want to reference like a project, PCS7 project that we did, right? Stevens PCS7. And I know there's a bunch of guys in my office who are like phenomenal DCS engineers in general, but like specifically have recent Siemens experience and have done super cool things, have built really cool internal tools, like commissioned this thing, like just provided excellent service. And I'll go to them and say, hey, can you write me like a paragraph on what you did? And they're like, well, I didn't really do much, or I didn't. And I'm thinking, come on, like, can we brag a little bit? So now specifically when I go to them, I don't even let them write it, because if I let them write it, it's going to be like, I did some stuff, it worked a little. Like, it will be so minimizing, It like they won't brag about themselves. So I'll get them on the phone, and I'll take notes, and I'll ask like very pointed questions, and then I will write it, because the way I write about them is very different than the way someone writes about themselves, right? Like, people definitely minimize their achievements a whole lot. So that's why I really like to brag about them. And I've also loved like seeing Megan Ziemba and like the way she talks about people and brags about people and really elevates voices in the industry is so inspirational to me. I originally just started following her because I'm like, I want to adopt a little bit of this style to start helping, the people that are really doing stuff. Because I haven't programmed a PLC now in a few years, but these guys are doing it every day. And I want to make sure that their work is spoken about. Like, you definitely have to be, I keep using the word brag, but putting your achievements on display and marketing yourself. So it's actually really interesting to hear that you were initially uncomfortable doing it, and that's not how it started, because you have gained such a following, and it looks so natural to like me looking at your stuff. It looks so natural. So it's interesting to hear that. I just think engineers are just not naturally marketers.
Not at all. Yeah, no, I wanted nothing to do with sales and marketing, because my dad is like huge on sales and marketing, and I was just like, that's not me. Like, I'm an engineer, and I want to just like keep my head down and be in the corner. And I don't know, like, just stuff happens, I guess. Like, and so I did come out of my shell. But even today, like, I'll go with Nikki to like a trade show, and like I will lose like all of my social battery, and she will just keep going, and I'll just be like, I can't do this, and I'll hide behind her. Like straight up, just be like, I'll just let her talk and then I'll be okay. Because like I do have like such a fragile social battery. And so like I'm nervous every time I go somewhere. And I like, as much as, I've people come up to me and they're just like, been following you for a really long time. And like, that is really awkward to me. And so, even though I like it, it's also just like shocking. And like, if I could go back to my like younger self and tell her what I was going to do, she'd be like, get out of here. Like, no way are we going to do that. No, like, absolutely, we're not doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but one of the things that like, I think has always defined me is, I was okay being uncomfortable all the time. And so like even in my job, that's how I grew. I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I hope I can do it. And then eventually, like, it's like I wore down my fear. And then over time, I was like, oh, every time I think I'm gonna fail, I find a way not to. And I find a way to find the answer. And so like eventually, I got this like confidence, my technical confidence. I'm still working on my like social, and like public speaking confidence, but I do have like I have confidence in when I walk into a factory, like I think I can speak to the people that work there and like talk their language to them, or like talk to electricians, or like stand my ground, even have arguments with like electricians or engineers. And I feel that I've, been through enough of like the technical stuff, to kind of assert myself the way that I did, like, and I didn't always have that because I was really scared, for at least a solid, 10 years before I was just like, okay, I'll be okay. And so now I don't have a technical fear. I have a social fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, have you always felt like, Nikki has amazed me because, the first automate that I went with her, she's not an engineer, but she can walk up to a group of guys who are clearly trying not to make eye contact with her. They're obviously like with their body language saying like, do not talk to me. And by the end, she will force the conversation to start. And by the end, they're like, oh, this is going to help me. And they change their mind, and then they're giving her their card. So like
Right.
I like my fear of rejection and like reading people is so strong that I'll shoot myself down without even giving myself a chance.
Sure.
So I don't know like where you stand on that. Like, are you like cool with rejection? Like, or how did you learn that?
I'm certainly not cool with rejection. I think most salespeople like are not. I think most people in general are not like cool with rejection. I think it's you kind of have to reframe it, right? So I think something that's interesting is I've spoken with a few other people in business development or who have taken the leap from being an engineer to being more on the commercial side, knowing that in every conversation, right? I know this much about all this, like a whole range of stuff I know 2 inches in. I can speak PCS7, I can speak Rockwell, I can speak some Honeywell and all that stuff. I can speak networks and servers and how we would go about commissioning and loop checks and all that stuff. But I know what my area of expertise is, and I know when it's time to bring in like the backups. So I think something that's really interesting to me is I read a book recently where it talks about women really overvalue expertise. So we think that we need to know everything about something or that we need to have all ranges of, a certain area covered before we can intelligently speak on it. And I've been trying to be more conscious of that now, thinking, listen, I don't need to know everything. I'm not going to know everything. This industry is very far and wide. Like so many aspects encompass controls and automation and the industry that we're in. And I'm if I wait till I know enough to speak confidently about all of that, I will be retired because I will be learning, it will be evolving. This industry it's evolving every year with new things that are coming out and new technologies. It's just not possible to wait to be an expert on it before you start talking about it. So I think that has kind of helped me reframe it a little bit and say, listen, I can actually have a cool voice in this because I'm coming at it as kind of a novice. I'm only 6 years out of school. I still have a fresh perspective on it, and I'm certainly not jaded. So many people in the industry have such a jaded mentality, and I'm sure like I'll get there. But I think till then, I can kind of bring this fresh perspective and then have people teach me, right? Like in a lot of my LinkedIn posts, it's people in the comments that have integrated these systems and worked with them for years and can talk about the origins and their horror stories and their lessons learned. I just think that is the coolest thing. So I'd say don't wait till you feel like you're an expert on something to start talking about it or spark conversations about it, because that won't happen, frankly.
I want to add to that because no, I completely agree that that's something that women are way too critical of themselves on. And so I've met a lot of male engineers that will confidently say something and I'm just like, you just made that up. Like, as long as you say it with confidence, people will just go with it. And like, I can now, like, I've seen enough things where I'm like, that is crap. Like, you just said that as a fact. And like, you have, like, back that up. And like, they can't. And so I just, want to warn, I think someone said, I think it was Danny Murphy, like the engineer and like professor. He's amazing. But shout out to Danny Murphy. But he said he did a post about I think it's Dunning-Kruger effect, which is like people that are like really smart think that they're not, and then people that like don't know anything about something think that they're like experts and they like overestimate. And so there's a lot of engineers that are overestimating, and they do tend to be men. Whereas like the women aren't doing that. And that's not to say that all engineering men are like that or that all engineering women are super timid. But that's what Bin I experience is if it's a group of a bunch of dudes and they're talking engineering, it's not that easy for the one girl to like assert herself and like have that confidence and like fight with these people, especially when they're very confident in what they don't even know. So I want like people to know that that's going on out there, and like that you should take your perspective of it and just be like, well, teach me, but also take it with a grain of salt and like understand that like some of these people are overestimating what they know how to do. And so over time, like you'll find, that their careers will speak for themselves, but like especially the younger guys, like don't listen to them like necessarily, like just look at it and be like, okay, well, let's see if you're right. But don't just take it just because someone says something really confidently does not mean that they're right.
Right.
And remember that is going on out there, because that's part of human nature. Some personalities are like that. I don't know if you've like seen that out there.
I have.
And then also, your customer is gonna say things that are wrong, and you have to be nice about, I've done that where it's just like my customer is just dead wrong, but I need to kind of repeat myself so that eventually my customer comes back and thinks it's their idea, and then I'm like, yeah, that's great. But you have to be gentle and like kind of just like drill it in there. So I don't know if you've seen that either.
Yeah, I'm trying to strike a balance, which is why, I love your podcast and the people that you have on, because I think there's so many more women in sales now in this industry, and it's really cool to see how we're able to take it and kind of make it our own, right? Because there's certain things that just men are naturally more comfortable doing certain things than women are, and vice versa, right? Nikki and I are more comfortable going up to a group of people we've never met and forcing ourselves into the conversation, because no one's ever afraid of a young woman. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to bully you or anything. No, we just tend not to be, strike fear in people. So yeah, I think it's striking the balance between finding my own voice and who I am and representing my company, but also standing my ground, but also being the person who could actually facilitate it. And finding out how I do that. So I actually read a really interesting book lately called The Mirror Door, and it is about women and men's like different kind of leadership traits. And one of the things it says is that it actually does start like very young. Like girls tend to play with girls, right? And you play house, and it's you make peace with each other. You're very used to lowering the tension, making sure everyone gets along, that people's feelings aren't hurt. And then, boys are out playing in the yard, and they're so used to getting comfortable one-upping each other and bragging and being comfortable expressing their accomplishments and their voice. And so it is really interesting. I always thought it was a little BS, like I really didn't know how true it was, but finding out that it actually starts and is rooted in like early childhood playing is just like the most fascinating thing that I ever read. I'm like, what? That is crazy.
That's really cool. And I think that's definitely everything about us is like, yeah, rooted in childhood, I think.
Yeah, it's
for sure.
wild. So yeah, just trying to find your own voice.
Were you like a tomboy? Did you like playing outside?
I definitely did. I remember my mom told me she was trying to get me to play Barbies or whatever, and I looked at her and I went, I cannot do that. Like, I wasn't good at it. I like make pretend like that. Like it just wasn't my thing. But yeah, I'd say it was very like practical. I love to build stuff, like do Legos and Connects. I don't know if you remember Connects. I love that stuff. Play video games, all that. Building things. I love to build things.
Can you talk about since we're on the topic, like conflict resolution, because I find that to be some of the most difficult thing as like a business owner. I'm like, we can make machines work because the machine's not going to talk back or cry. Whereas humans, like especially other humans, like that was the biggest shock to me is like I did a review on someone once and they cried. And I was just like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. Like, and so, you don't have to obviously like go into too much detail, but like, how do you approach that? Because I'm sure people eventually get mad for one reason or the other, especially in business.
Yeah, I think that you cannot over communicate. Anytime that I have had issues, it's because there hasn't been enough communication. So I know for me, I can understand, I can see when people are getting frustrated about schedules or about budget or something, and I think you just cannot communicate enough. This is where we're at the budget. We anticipate this is what is going to happen. We'll need a purchase order for this. People get really weird about money, right? Like money is a hard conversation, and I think it's about taking control and talking money from the very beginning. I try to do that with customers to understand like, are we in your budget? I don't want to put together this whole proposal for you if you actually have this budget and we actually expect this budget. Or if you have a big budget to spend on this, I won't go cheap on the services. We'll make sure that you get everything, I's dotted, T's crossed, reviewed, SMEs reviewed it. You're going to get like the top tier service. So I think talking about money from the beginning is really important in business and always talking about it, because when it comes to the end, it's like, oh, what are they going to say? It's like, well, you should know what they're going to say or how they're going to feel because you've been talking about it the whole time. As far as people, I don't have any direct reports. So I've never had to deal with that. Luckily, I think I would probably cry if I had to like fire someone or give someone a bad review. Like I would be the one crying. But I'm still learning that. That's a part of my career I haven't crossed yet, is the managing people, right? I manage some, I manage personalities around me, but I certainly don't like have people who I'm solely responsible for. But that is the next hurdle in my career.
Do you want that?
I don't know. I think at some point, probably. Right now, I'm kind of happy being like a lone wolf, I guess, or like a team player. Team player is better. I like working with people. But managing people at the moment is not, I don't really know. I guess in sales, you could be like a sales manager or have a specific like district with people underneath you. But ACE is quite flat. Like our sales organization really isn't built like that. So I don't see that happening.
I think we can almost wrap up, but like, Um, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's like an interview question.
Yeah, it is. Um, oh boy. I just want to get really good at what I do. I want those conversations about projects and scope and capabilities and all that. I want that to be second nature for me. Right now, it is still, like you said, it's like a little bit nerve-wracking, it's pretty uncomfortable, and I feel like I need to prepare a lot to go into those things. But I've seen some other people at, especially like at the company, who have gone into like kind of difficult conversations, and I've just watched the way that they have so easily taken it and de-escalated it, and really worked the conversation very well. And I just thought to myself, dang, that was good. It just, everyone comes out happy, things get resolved. And in my mind, I'm going into it like, oh my gosh, I think they're going to do this or that. I would like to get out of my own head and start practicing those things, so that I can be just more confident in what I do. And I'd like to see some really big wins, if I'm being honest. Like, there's nothing like the feeling of a project going from RFP to RFI and all the way through. You're talking about your capabilities. You're selling your people, right? Like, we have such great engineers, and it's my job to sell them and to make sure that they get to exercise their skills, and we get to do a great job on this project. And I think seeing things go all the way from the beginning up through commissioning and then seeing it go live is like, it's one of the most satisfying things. Even though I'm not the one there on the walkie doing IO checks or loop checks or anything, it's just so satisfying to see them publish that they've gone live and they're making product. It's just really cool.
I love that. I definitely agree. If people want, to contact you, where can they do that?
LinkedIn is the best.
And like, are you open to that? Because some people are like, don't talk to me, but you don't seem like that.
Oh no, listen, I'm a chit chatter. Like, I'm a chit chatter to chit chat. I'm a chit chatter if you want, engineering services. I'm happy to talk about that. Being involved in the community and, talking to people online is so interesting. I've had so many people reach out over posts I've made and say, hey, yeah, I did this TDC 2000 thing back in the day. And it's just so interesting. I love hearing from people much older than myself who have done these things and have seen it, go live. I think manufacturing is just so interesting. I've liked it since I was a kid, just watching how things get made. And it does not wear off on me. Like, I'm just sitting around looking around the room and I'm like, that ceramic was made somewhere. The glaze was made somewhere else. What is it made from? It's just amazing how these things get to us. So I just love hearing about that. And yeah, so people can reach out to me. Certainly on LinkedIn is a really good place to chat. And then if we need to go, I can, go further. I can give them my business email as well.
Okay. I know that you had invited me to like a women in manufacturing, or yeah, I think that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Are you interested in like in the future, like mentoring? And then what's been your experience with like those women's groups?
Oh yeah. For me, they've been a complete lifesaver. So I'm one of the only females in my office down here. I know a lot of other people have bigger offices that have formal mentorship programs, but it's been so great to connect with people outside of my company. My company's been, very encouraging of go meet other people in the industry, go network. And I think, I'm not from Houston, so I don't have like my mom's friends who are professionals in HR or anything, so I've really had to build that network up for myself. And I think they've been fantastic. So my favorite ones are the Women's Energy Network in Houston. There's events all the time. Okay. Everyone's very open. I've done the mentoring group there where I was a mentee. So I've never mentored anyone. I'm happy to speak to people. But I'm not an official mentor in any capacity. I'm definitely still a mentee, still trying to figure out the industry and where I fall into it and all of that. And then there's Women in Manufacturing. I went to my first event last week. Great group of ladies. And then what else? Oh, the ISA, Houston ISA, really great group as well. There's stuff all the time. So definitely if you're looking for it, it is there. I heard a business development mentor of mine. She said, insert yourself and then deliver. And I think that's a great phrase. Like, you belong there more, just as much as anybody else. And then if you're given the opportunity to serve in any kind of way or volunteer, like deliver on what you said you would do. And I think that really helps you build a community. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.